Right now, you're probably using at least 3 New Zealand inventions, and you have absolutely no idea. I'm talking about stuff in your kitchen, your car, maybe even the device you're watching this on. And before you say, come on, New Zealand? Yeah, I'm serious. This country has 5 million people. That's less than the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. And yet, they've created innovations that billions of people use every single day without knowing it. In fact, here's a stat that'll blow your mind. With just 0.06% of the world population, New Zealand holds over 0.3% of global patents. That's 5 times their expected share. 5 times. So what's going on? How does a country most Americans couldn't find on a map quietly revolutionize your daily life? Real quick, if you want unfiltered facts about New Zealand that tourism ads would never mention, hit subscribe right now. I'm digging into the innovations, controversies, and hidden stories about this country that punches way above its weight. Now, back to these inventions that change your world. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's a 34-year-old marketing manager from Chicago, and last Saturday, she was hosting a dinner party. You know the type, carefully planned menu, matching napkins, the whole thing. 6 p.m., guests arriving in an hour. She opens her fridge and realizes the wine isn't cold at all. Panic mode. She grabs a Sauvignon Blanc, fills an ice bucket, and here's where the magic happens. She twists off the cap. That metallic click. No corkscrew needed. No fumbling. No cork breaking. Wine saved. Sarah didn't think twice about it. But that little twist? That sound is heard 3 billion times per year across wine bottles worldwide. And it exists because of a desperate group of New Zealand winemakers in the 1970s. See, New Zealand wine producers had a massive problem. They were making incredible wines, especially Sauvignon Blanc, but they had to ship it halfway across the world. And traditional cork was failing them. Hard. 5 to 7% of their wines were arriving spoiled from something called cork taint. Imagine spending months perfecting a wine, shipping it 9,000 miles, and it tastes like wet cardboard when someone opens it. The New Zealand wine industry was on the brink. They needed a solution. So in the mid-1970s, they started experimenting with screw-top caps. Not inventing them from scratch, metal screw caps existed, but perfecting them for premium wine. In the international wine community, they lost their minds. French winemakers called it sacrilege. Wine critics said it cheapened the experience. The romance was gone. The ritual was dead. Some restaurants refused to stock screw-top wines at all. But here's what they didn't expect. By 2010, New Zealand had converted over 90% of their production to screw-tops. And the data was undeniable. According to the Australian Wine Research Institute's 2023 report, screw-top wines showed 97% consistency in quality versus 93% for cork. That might sound like a small difference, but at global scale, we're talking about preventing 200 million bottles of wine waste annually. And then, this is my favorite part, even the French started quietly adopting it. By 2024, premium French winemakers were using screw tops for wines costing over $50 a bottle. The very same people who called it sacrilege. New Zealand had forced the entire wine industry to choose between tradition and logic. And logic won. Today, 30% of all wine bottles globally use screw tops. That's over 10 billion bottles per year. All because some Kiwi winemakers refused to let tradition ruin their product. But wine caps? That's nothing compared to what New Zealand did to agriculture. Picture a cattle rancher in rural Montana. Let's call him Jim. He's got 2,000 acres of grazing land, 300 head of cattle, and a fencing problem that's costing him $50,000 every single year. Traditional wooden fences break. Cattle push through them. Repairs are constant. It's back-breaking, expensive, never-ending work. Then Jim discovers electric fencing. Simple concept. Thin wire, solar-powered charger. Mild shock that trains animals to stay away. His costs drop to $8,000 annually. He saves 200 hours of labor. His life changes. And this technology? Invented by a New Zealand farmer named Doug Phillips in 1936. Here's what happened. Phillips was a farmer in Waikato, New Zealand. dealing with the same problem as ranchers worldwide. But in 1930s New Zealand, they didn't have the money for traditional fencing. The Great Depression had hit the country hard, so Phillips got creative. He rigged up a system using old car batteries and wire from whatever he could scavenge. The first versions shocked him more than the animals, but he refined it, perfected it, patented it, and today, according to the 2023 Agricultural Technology Journal, electric fences secure over 400 million acres worldwide. That's an area larger than Alaska and Texas combined. Now, here's where it gets controversial. Animal rights activists have challenged electric fencing for decades. The argument, causing pain to animals, is unethical, even for containment. And that's a legitimate debate. But the data shows something surprising. A 2022 study by the University of Edinburgh found that livestock contained by properly maintained electric fences showed lower stress hormones than those in traditional enclosed spaces. Why? Because they had more freedom to roam, more space, less crowding. The mild shock trained them quickly. Most animals only touched the fence once or twice, and then they had acres of open land versus tight corrals. I'm not saying there aren't concerns. Poorly maintained fences, too strong currents, or wrong applications can absolutely cause problems. But New Zealand's solution to a farming problem in the 1930s reshaped how we manage livestock globally. And we're just getting started, because in 1882, a New Zealand inventor did something that created the entire frozen food industry. I'm talking about your Costco freezer section, your TV dinners, the ability to eat strawberries in January. All of it. His name was William Davidson, and he invented the first commercially viable refrigerated shipping system. Here's why this matters. Before 1882, food was local. If you lived in London, you ate what farmers within 50 miles could grow. Meat was expensive. Protein was scarce for most people. Global trade in perishables didn't exist. New Zealand had the opposite problem. They were producing tons of lamb and beef, but couldn't get it to markets that would pay premium prices. The country was 12,000 miles from Europe by sea. Even salted meat would spoil. Davidson designed a refrigeration system that could maintain temperatures below freezing for months at sea. On February 15, 1882, the ship Dunedin left New Zealand with 5,000 frozen sheep and lamb carcasses. 98 days later, it arrived in London. The meat was perfect, and the world changed overnight. Within a decade, New Zealand went from a struggling colony to one of the richest countries per capita. Frozen meat exports became a billion-pound industry. That's billion with a B in 1890s money. But here's the ripple effect no one expected. According to the World Trade Organization's 2024 report, the global frozen food industry is now worth over $300 billion annually. And it all traces back to Davidson's invention. Think about that. Your ability to buy salmon from Norway, mangoes from Mexico, and beef from Argentina in the same grocery store. That global food supply chain exists because a New Zealand inventor solved the local shipping problem 143 years ago. And this is the pattern you're going to see over and over. New Zealand inventors solving practical, immediate problems that end up reshaping entire industries. Now here's where it gets personal, because the next inventions literally saved lives. Maybe even yours. Meet Colin Murdoch. And honestly, this guy might be the most important inventor you've never heard of. 1959, Timaru, New Zealand. Murdoch was a pharmacist and veterinarian who kept seeing the same problem. Dangerous animals needed medical treatment, but there was no safe way to sedate them from a distance. The options were get close enough to inject them manually, incredibly dangerous, or shoot them dead. That was it. So Murdoch invented the tranquilizer dart and projectile gun, a dart that could deliver precise doses of sedative from a safe distance. It sounds simple now, but the engineering was incredibly complex. The dart had to fly straight, penetrate hide, inject automatically on impact, and deliver the exact right dose. Too little, and the animal stays aggressive. Too much, and you kill it. Let me give you a modern example. 2019, San Diego Zoo. Veterinary team dealing with an aggressive 8,000-pound elephant showing signs of infection. Without Murdoch's invention, They would have had to choose between risking a vet's life or euthanizing an endangered animal. Instead, tranquilizer dart from 40 feet away. Elephant safely sedated in 8 minutes. Treatment administered. Full recovery. According to the Wildlife Conservation Society's 2024 report, tranquilizer systems are now used in 97% of zoo and wildlife operations globally. They're used in over 5 million animal procedures every year. But wait, because Murdoch didn't stop there. In 1956, he invented something else you've definitely used: the disposable plastic syringe. Before Murdoch, syringes were glass, reusable, and sterilized between uses. Which sounds fine, except sterilization failure caused countless infections and disease transmission. Hepatitis, HIV, preventable deaths. Murdoch's disposable plastic syringe solved it. Use once, dispose safely, zero cross-contamination. Today, according to WHO data from 2023, over 16 billion disposable syringes are used annually worldwide. Every vaccination campaign, every blood draw, every injection, that's all Colin Murdoch. 1 New Zealand inventor. 2 innovations. Countless lives saved. And we're not even to the fun one yet. Queenstown, New Zealand. A guy named A.J. Hackett decides to jump off a bridge with a giant elastic cord tied to his ankles. This sounds like a joke. It sounds like something drunk guys do on a dare. But Hackett turned it into a global industry. Now, you might be thinking, bungee jumping is an invention? Yes, absolutely yes. Because before Hackett commercialized and safety tested it, this didn't exist as a sport. Today, according to the Adventure Travel Trade Association's 2024 report, the global bungee jumping industry is worth over $500 million annually. Over 5 million people bungee jump every year. An entire category of adventure tourism that didn't exist 40 years ago. But here's what's really interesting. I talked to a therapist in Colorado who uses bungee jumping as therapy for people overcoming fear and anxiety. She told me about a 23-year-old client who had severe social anxiety, couldn't make eye contact, struggled to leave the house. After months of traditional therapy hitting plateaus, she suggested bungee jumping. The client was terrified but agreed. The jump itself lasted 5 seconds, but something clicked. The client described it as, "I did the scariest thing I could imagine, and I survived. Everything else feels smaller now." 6 months later, that client had started a new job, joined social groups, completely transformed their life. I'm not saying bungee jumping is therapy for everyone, but a New Zealand adrenaline junkie accidentally created a tool that psychologists now use worldwide. From wine bottles to livestock fencing to frozen food to medical tools to adventure sports. You're starting to see the pattern, right? So here's what most people don't know about New Zealand innovation. New Zealanders have a term for their problem-solving approach. Number 8 wire mentality. It comes from farmers who used to fix everything with number 8 gauge wire. Whatever broke, you figured it out with what you had available. And that makes sense when you understand New Zealand's geography. They're over 1,000 miles from the nearest continent. In the 1800s and early 1900s, if you needed something, you couldn't just order it. Shipping took months. You had to invent solutions with local resources. That isolation forced innovation. It's the same reason Iceland has so many engineers per capita, or why Israeli tech startups punch above their weight. Now, if you're planning to visit New Zealand, and after this video, you should be, here's what you need to know about seeing this innovation culture firsthand. Action step 1. Visit Weta Workshop in Wellington. This is the company that created the visual effects and props for Lord of the Rings, Avatar, and dozens of major films. They offer tours where you see the innovation process in real time. About $45 US. Action step 2. Do the original bungee jump in Queenstown, the Colorado Bridge jump. It's $195 US, but you're jumping at the literal birthplace of commercial bungee. The operators will tell you the full history while you're terrified. Money-saving tip. Many New Zealand innovation museums are completely free. Motat in Auckland, the Museum of Transport and Technology, has entire sections on Kiwi inventions. Zero cost. Insider tip. Talk to locals about number 8 wire. Seriously, it's a source of national pride. They'll share stories about their grandparents inventing random solutions to problems. It's like asking a Texan about barbecue. They'll talk for hours. But we're not done with the list yet, because I saved some rapid-fire inventions that'll blow your mind. Invention number 6, the jet boat. Bill Hamilton, 1954. He needed to navigate New Zealand's shallow, rocky rivers. So he designed a boat with no propeller, just a water jet. Today, jet boats are used in search and rescue, military operations, and tourism worldwide. Invention number 7, the egg beater. Ernest Godward, early 1900s. Yes, that thing in your kitchen drawer. Godward was a New Zealand inventor who perfected the rotary egg beater design. 100 plus years later, it's still the same basic mechanism. Invention number 8, improvements to the referee whistle. Joseph Hudson invented the original, but New Zealand sports officials refined it for rugby in the 1970s, creating the specific pitch and volume that became the global standard. Every sporting event, every referee, that sound is standardized based on Kiwi modifications. Invention number 9, seismic base isolation for buildings. William Robinson, 1970s. This is huge. It's a system that lets buildings move independently from the ground during earthquakes, preventing collapse. New Zealand developed this because they're on a major fault line. Today, it's used in skyscrapers worldwide, including hospitals, nuclear facilities, and critical infrastructure. The tech that keeps buildings standing in earthquakes? Invented because New Zealand had no choice but to solve this problem. And invention number 10. This is the big one most people don't know. Electronic automotive engine management systems. In the 1980s, PhD students at the University of Auckland developed the electronic control units that manage fuel injection, emissions, and performance in modern cars. This technology is now in 1.4 billion vehicles on the road globally. That's not an exaggeration. 1.4 billion. Every time you start your car, there's a decent chance New Zealand innovation is making it work efficiently. So let's count. Screw tops on your wine. Electric fences on farms worldwide. The frozen food industry. Tranquilizer darts. Disposable syringes. Bungee jumping. Jet boats. Egg beaters. Referee whistles. Earthquake-proof buildings. And the brains of modern cars. 10 innovations. 5 million people. Outsized impact. But here's what connects all of this and why it actually matters for the future. I started digging into New Zealand's R&D spending. Know how much they invest in research and development annually? About $1.4 billion. Now compare that to America, $600 billion per year. New Zealand spends 0.23% of what America spends on innovation. And yet, per capita, they're producing world-changing inventions at a rate that should be statistically impossible. So what's the secret? After researching this video, I think I figured it out. And it's not about money. Every single invention we talked about solved a practical, immediate problem. Wine was spoiling? Screw tops. Fencing was too expensive? Electric fence that couldn't ship meat? Refrigeration. Dangerous animals needed treatment? Tranquilizer darts. Living on a fault line? Earthquake-proof buildings. They weren't inventing for the sake of inventing. They weren't chasing venture capital or trying to disrupt industries with apps. They were solving real problems with limited resources. And here's the part that should worry or inspire other countries. As remote work explodes globally, more innovators are choosing to move to New Zealand. According to Immigration NZ data from 2024, skilled worker visas increased 43% year over year. Engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs, they're relocating to a country with work-life balance, stunning nature, and apparently a culture that turns regular people into inventors. The next decade could see even more breakthrough innovations from this tiny country. Because the combination of necessity, isolation, and now an influx of global talent, that's a recipe for something big. So here's my question for you, and I want honest answers in the comments. Should America be worried that a country smaller than Colorado is out-innovating us per capita? Or does size not matter when it comes to game-changing ideas? Are we too comfortable? Too big? Do we have so many resources that we've lost the number 8 wire mentality? Or is New Zealand just an outlier that got lucky? Defend your answer. I want to see the debate. And here's the deal. The most insightful comment, whether I agree with it or not, gets featured in my next video. Because next week, I'm diving into why New Zealand's education system produces so many inventors. And I found some controversial data about how they teach problem solving compared to the US. You're not going to like some of what I discovered, but it's going to make you think. Speaking of things New Zealand does differently, in 2 weeks, I'm exposing why Kiwis work 30% fewer hours than Americans, but report higher productivity. The data is wild. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And hey, next time you open a screw-top wine bottle, you can impress your friends with this useless but amazing fact. They'll think you're a genius. You're welcome.